You're listening to Grad Pro Book, where we go beyond the summary and deep into the critique. Introduction: Decoding a Monument. Since its initial release in 1987, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki has transcended the boundaries of a typical personal finance book to become a global cultural phenomenon. With tens of millions of copies sold and translated into countless languages, this work has changed the way millions of people think about money, work, and wealth. It is not merely a guide. It is a manifesto that challenges the entire belief system the middle class has been taught for generations. However, alongside its resounding success are streams of controversy and harsh criticism. Is Rich Dad, Poor Dad an enlightening manual that paves the way to financial freedom, or is it merely an inspirational piece lacking depth and practicality? Are the lessons of Rich Dad timeless golden principles, or just oversimplified anecdotes that harbor significant risks for those who follow them blindly? To answer these questions, the following critique will conduct a detailed dissection of Kiyosaki's work. We will divide the analysis into two distinct parts. Part 1 will focus on explaining the book's extraordinary appeal, analyzing the brilliant aspects that have helped it revolutionize readers' thinking. Part 2 will shift to a critical perspective, pointing out the gaps, weaknesses, and potential risks embedded in the philosophy Kiyosaki promotes. Through this, we will gain a multifaceted and balanced view of the complex legacy of one of the most influential finance books of all time. Part 1: The Global Appeal, Analyzing the Strengths of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The enduring success of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is no accident. It stems from a masterful combination of factors, from its unique narrative style to its simplification of complex concepts, creating a work that resonates deeply with the sentiments of the masses. 1. A revolution in financial narrative: The Power of the Two Dads Story. Kiyosaki's greatest stroke of genius, and perhaps the decisive factor in the book's success, lies in the narrative structure based on two iconic figures, Rich Dad and Poor Dad. This is not just a storytelling method. It is an incredibly effective pedagogical tool. First, it creates a clear, memorable, and dramatic dichotomy. Every financial concept is viewed through the lens of these two worldviews: security versus freedom, employee versus owner, liability versus asset, fear versus opportunity. This sharp contrast helps readers quickly grasp the core ideas. Instead of presenting a series of dry rules, Kiyosaki turns them into a lively dialogue between two philosophies. Poor Dad, a highly educated man who always struggled financially, represents the familiar path most of us are taught. Study hard, find a stable job. He embodies safety, the fear of risk, and adherence to social norms. Readers can easily see the image of their parents, their teachers, and even themselves in this character. Conversely, Rich Dad, his father's friend, is a less educated but incredibly wealthy entrepreneur who represents a different path, a breakthrough way of thinking. He is a symbol of financial intelligence, of taking calculated risks, and of making money work for him. He becomes the ideal teacher and mentor that many readers wish they had in their lives. Second, this structure allows Kiyosaki to personify abstract ideas. The lessons are no longer mere theories, but are advice, stories, and experiences tied to specific characters. Learning about assets and liabilities becomes much more engaging when it's woven into the story of Rich Dad, explaining why a house is not an asset. The lesson on overcoming fear becomes vivid when told through the experience of young Robert working for no pay. This helps the book shed the label of a textbook and become a captivating, relatable story. Finally, playing the role of a student caught between two schools of thought allows Kiyosaki to create a close connection with the reader. He doesn't position himself as an expert dispensing truth, but as someone who has gone through a process of choice and learning. Readers feel as though they are discovering these secrets alongside him, making the learning process feel more natural and less imposing. The power of the Two Dads story is the foundation that elevated Rich Dad Poor Dad from a finance book to a classic on mindset. 2. Simplifying complexity, the key to unlocking financial thinking for the masses. Finance and investing are often seen as complex fields, filled with jargon and confusing formulas that intimidate the average person. Kiyosaki's second major success was breaking down this barrier by simplifying core concepts to their absolute essence. The definition of assets and liabilities is the most classic example. Instead of getting bogged down in technically accurate but incomprehensible accounting definitions, he provides a simple golden rule. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. This definition, while perhaps not entirely academically correct, is incredibly powerful in practice. It gives readers an instant classification tool, a simple filter they can apply to every financial decision in their daily lives. A car, a big house, a new smartphone, all can be quickly assessed through this cash flow lens. Furthermore, the cash flow diagrams are an excellent visualization tool. With just a few simple arrows, Kiyosaki illustrates the financial picture of three classes: the poor, the middle class, and the rich. Readers can immediately see where their money is flowing, why they work hard but don't get rich, and how the financial path of the wealthy differs. These diagrams have a more powerful impact than thousands of words, helping readers self-diagnose their financial health. Finally, the metaphor of the rat race is a hauntingly accurate image. The picture of a hamster running endlessly on a wheel without getting anywhere perfectly describes the situation of many people. Wake up, go to work, pay bills, repeat. This metaphor not only helps readers recognize their situation, but also creates a powerful urge to escape it. By using these simplification tools, Kiyosaki has democratized financial knowledge. He has made a daunting subject accessible, giving ordinary people the language and tools to begin taking control of their financial lives. 3. Changing the mental operating system. Core value beyond investment advice. The most profound value of Rich Dad Poor Dad lies not in specific investment strategies, but in its ability to fundamentally change the reader's mental operating system. The book doesn't just teach about money, it teaches a new way of thinking. The core of this change is the shift from an employee mindset, E, employee, to the mindset of a business owner and investor, B, business owner, and I, investor. Kiyosaki argues that the education system is designed to produce good employees who follow rules and seek security. The book challenges this model, encouraging readers to think beyond the confines of a steady job and a paycheck. It plants the idea of building systems, owning assets, and achieving true freedom. Another revolutionary mindset shift is the perspective on work. Work to learn, don't work for money. This advice encourages a long-term view of one's career, seeing each job as an opportunity to accumulate skills, especially in sales, marketing, and leadership, rather than just a means to make a living. This is a powerful message, especially for young people, helping them to strategically orient their career path to serve the ultimate goal of financial freedom. The book also reframes how we view risk and failure. While society and school teach us to avoid mistakes, Rich Dad teaches that failure is an indispensable part of the success process. Winners are not those who never fail, but those who are not afraid to fail. They see failure as an opportunity to learn and grow stronger. This mindset liberates readers from the fear that has held them back, encouraging them to dare to experiment and take action. 4. A call to action. Awakening the aspiration for financial freedom. Ultimately, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a book with the power to inspire and drive intense action. It is not a cold financial analysis, but a passionate call to arms. Kiyosaki successfully tapped into the simmering dissatisfaction many people feel about the current financial system. He legitimized the feeling that there is something wrong with working hard for 40 years, only to retire in scarcity. By outlining a different path, a possible escape, he gave hope to millions. The stories of inventing money from nothing of buying real estate without using one's own money, while perhaps criticized as simplistic, act as powerful mental stimulants. They make the goal of getting rich seem attainable, no longer the exclusive privilege of the elite. The overarching message of the book is one of empowerment. Kiyosaki repeatedly emphasizes that you, and only you, have the power to decide your financial future. Wealth is not the result of luck or high education, but the result of financial intelligence and daily choices. Every dollar you hold in your hand is a vote for the future you want, rich, poor, or middle class. This powerful message has awakened the desire for financial freedom and motivated countless readers to begin their journey of learning and building their own assets. You're listening to Grad Pro Book, where we go beyond the summary and deep into the critique. In the previous part, we understood the foundational elements that made Rich Dad, Poor Dad a global sensation. Its revolutionary narrative, its powerful simplification of complex ideas, and its profound impact on the reader's mindset. In this part, we will shift our focus from celebration to critical examination, delving into the very aspects of the book that have drawn controversy and skepticism. Could it be that behind the empowering philosophy lies a series of practical gaps and understated dangers? Let us now turn our attention to this critical perspective. Part 2. The Gaps and Potential Risks. A critical look at the depth of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If Part 1 explains why Rich Dad, Poor Dad became a phenomenon, Part 2 undertakes an equally important task: to shed light on its blind spots, criticisms, and limitations. A responsible critic not only praises, but also questions. And with Kiyosaki's work, there are many questions to be asked. 1. From philosophy to practice. The vagueness of the how-to advice. This is the most common and valid criticism leveled against the book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is an excellent book on why to, but is very weak on how to. Kiyosaki is brilliant at inspiring and changing mindsets, but when readers are enlightened and eager to start, they find almost no concrete roadmap. The book talks a lot about buying real estate, investing in stocks, and building businesses. However, it provides almost no detailed instructions on how to do these things. How do you analyze a real estate deal? How much capital do you need to start? How do you find and vet promising small companies? How do you build an effective business system? All of these practical questions are left unanswered. The examples Kiyosaki provides are often anecdotal and simplified to the point of being unbelievable. For instance, the story of him creating $40,000 from a real estate deal in just a few hours. He describes the process as if it were a walk in the park. Find a bargain at a bankruptcy attorney's office, get a small short-term loan, advertise, and sell immediately. In reality, the process of buying a foreclosed property is incredibly complex, requiring legal knowledge, due diligence skills, and often facing fierce competition. Finding a buyer willing to accept a promissory note instead of a traditional bank loan is also not simple. By omitting the difficulties and complex details, Kiyosaki paints a rosy picture that can be misleading for beginners. This vagueness is not accidental. Many critics argue that it is a deliberate business strategy. The book acts as a marketing funnel, sparking the curiosity and desire of readers, then guiding them to Kiyosaki's more expensive products and services like the cash flow game, courses, seminars, and coaching programs, where the how-to knowledge is promised to be revealed. This creates a sense that the book is just an introduction, and to get the real knowledge, you have to pay more. 2. Between myth and reality. The question of the rich dad's authenticity. The entire foundation of the book is built on the teachings of Rich Dad. However, the true identity of this character has always been a great mystery. Many journalists and investigators have tried to verify the existence of a real person matching Kiyosaki's description, but have failed. Kiyosaki has always maintained that Rich Dad is real, but that he must keep his identity secret to honor a promise to the character's family. This lack of concrete evidence has raised suspicions that Rich Dad may be a fictional character, a literary device created by Kiyosaki to convey his message more effectively. If this is true, it would seriously undermine the work's integrity. The stories told would no longer be verified real-world experiences, but merely hypothetical examples, embellished fables. For a book in the non-fiction genre, especially a financial advice book, credibility and authenticity are paramount. Building his entire philosophy on a character who may not exist opens Kiyosaki up to criticism for a lack of transparency. Readers have the right to ask, if the central character is a product of imagination, then what percentage of the lessons and success figures cited is true? 3. The double-edged sword of simplicity. Controversial statements. As analyzed in Part 1, simplicity is one of the book's greatest strengths. However, it is also a fatal flaw when simplification turns into one-sidedness and inaccuracy. The most controversial statement is, "Your house is a liability." From a short-term cash flow perspective, Kiyosaki has a point. A house generates monthly expenses. However, this view ignores the bigger picture. For millions of families, homeownership is a form of forced savings through paying down the principal. In the long run, a house can appreciate significantly, becoming a major asset in retirement. In many countries, mortgage interest is also tax-deductible. More importantly, it provides stability and security, intangible non-financial values. To declare unequivocally that a house is a liability is an oversimplification that can cause confusion and lead to poor decisions for readers. Another generalization is the denigration of the role of employees and the importance of formal education. The book often portrays employees in the E and S quadrants as passive, fearful, and trapped individuals. This is not only disrespectful but also untrue. Many people find fulfillment, meaning, and financial success in their professional careers. A skilled surgeon, a talented engineer, or a dedicated teacher can all build a prosperous and socially useful life. Similarly, devaluing higher education can be harmful, especially when statistics still show that people with higher degrees generally have higher average incomes and lower unemployment rates. 4. The thin line between smart and reckless, understated risks. Rich Dad, Poor Dad promotes a bold entrepreneurial and investment spirit, but often downplays the associated risks. The book creates an impression that getting rich through real estate and business is a relatively easy and low-risk path. If you are financially intelligent, the advice to pay yourself first, while profound in terms of psychology and discipline, is extremely dangerous if applied mechanically. Prioritizing investments while ignoring bills and debts can quickly ruin one's credit score, lead to legal troubles, and push a person into an even worse financial situation. Kiyosaki tells of letting his creditors scream, but he had the knowledge and experience to manage the situation. An average person following this advice could face disastrous consequences. The book also strongly advocates for the use of financial leverage, debt, to acquire assets. While this is a common strategy for investors, Kiyosaki does not sufficiently emphasize its tremendous risks. When the market goes down, leverage can wipe out your entire net worth in the blink of an eye. The high-risk, high-reward mentality is romanticized, while caution and risk management are not given corresponding attention. General conclusion: an enlightening but incomplete work. What is the true place of Rich Dad, Poor Dad in the personal finance library? The answer lies in recognizing its dual nature. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is an undeniably enlightening work on mindset. It has succeeded brilliantly in challenging entrenched beliefs, asking the right and important questions, and inspiring millions with the belief that they can change their financial destiny. For these reasons, it deserves to be read and pondered. However, it is not and should not be considered a comprehensive investment guide. The advice in the book is too vague, the examples too simplistic, and the risks understated. To treat it as a detailed roadmap to wealth is a dangerous mistake. The wisest approach is to view Rich Dad, Poor Dad as the starting point of a journey. It is the book that helps you with the why, igniting the fire within you. But after reading it, you have the responsibility to find the answers to how on your own. This requires seeking out other sources of knowledge, more in-depth books, practical courses, trustworthy experts, to build a solid knowledge base and a robust risk management strategy. The legacy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is that it opened up a crucial conversation about money for the public. It gave ordinary people a new language to talk about finance and a new lens through which to view the world. For that, it remains a valuable work. But its value is only fully realized when readers approach it with a critical mind, clearly recognizing both its brilliant insights and its significant shortcomings. Thank you for listening. Your support means the world to us, so please consider liking this video and subscribing to the GradPro Book channel for more in-depth critiques.